Imagine this. One day, the noise stops. The screens go dark. The endless scroll stops. Every notification disappears. And you're left alone with your own thoughts. But instead of peace, you feel panic. Because without the noise, there's nothing left to think with. The silence feels empty. That's when you realize the world didn't steal your voice. It stole your mind. We're living in an age where thinking has quietly gone extinct. Not because people lost intelligence, but because they lost the habit of questioning. Thinking didn't die of stupidity. It died of convenience. The mind chose comfort over clarity. Truth has been replaced by speed, understanding by performance, depth by noise. Everywhere you look, people are busy but mentally idle, scrolling endlessly, commenting instantly. But when was the last time anyone paused before believing? When did curiosity stop being instinct and start feeling like rebellion? Thinking is hard, and that's why so many people have stopped doing it. To think is to disturb the peace of your own illusions. It's to face the cracks in the things that used to make you feel safe. To sit in silence long enough to realize that maybe the lies felt comforting, and comfort always feels safer than truth. It's easier to keep running than to stop and face yourself. Easier to stay busy than to stay awake. We've become addicted to noise because it saves us from meeting ourselves. So we build little digital mirrors that only show what we already believe. We call them feeds, but they don't feed us. They feed on us. They whisper what we want to hear, not what we need to know. We measure truth by how many hearts sit beneath a post. We mistake attention for meaning. And slowly, we forget how to think at all. Our opinions turn into algorithms. Our feelings turn into data. Our individuality fades into a sea of noise. The world doesn't burn books anymore. It burns your attention span. We don't destroy knowledge, we drown it. Every second is filled with information, but almost none of it stays with us. We've traded understanding for excitement, reflection for reaction. We've built a world where silence feels like failure. But the truth is, silence isn't empty. It's where everything real begins. Make no mistake, none of this is random, and none of it is harmless. There's an architecture behind your distraction, built carefully to keep your mind comfortable and quiet. Entire systems are making a living off your mental laziness, and they prefer you that way. Algorithms don't care what you believe. They only care that you keep reacting. They feed you anger when you slow down, outrage when you get tired, and illusion when you start to question. The more you argue, the longer you stay. The more confused you become, the easier you are to guide. It's not about truth anymore. It's about attention. And attention has become the new currency of control. Schools no longer teach how to think, only how to repeat. They train obedience, not observation. Media no longer values truth. It values performance. It rewards those who shout, not those who understand. And in the workplace, creativity quietly dies beneath the weight of "don't make mistakes." From childhood, we're taught to obey softly, to color inside the lines, to fit, to follow, to please. It's a perfect design. Predictable minds make predictable consumers. If you never pause to question, you'll buy what you're told, believe what you're shown, and fear what they want you to fear. And here's the dark irony. The less you actually think, the more certain you feel. The quieter your doubts, the louder your opinions become. Confidence without comprehension has become the new kind of intelligence. Arrogance now wears the mask of knowledge. And the world applauds it because a noisy mind is easier to manage than a curious one. Here's the darker truth, the quiet psychology behind collective stupidity. Psychologists call it social proof, that deep human instinct to copy others when we're uncertain. Long ago, it kept tribes alive, following the group meant safety, belonging, survival. But today, that same instinct no longer protects us. It keeps entire societies asleep. We've stopped verifying. We simply imitate. If it trends, it must be true. If it's popular, it must be right. We mistake repetition for evidence and noise for wisdom. It's easier to trust the crowd than to stand alone and think. So we follow the loudest voice, not the clearest one. We nod along, repost, repeat, and call it awareness when it's really just automation. But collective agreement doesn't create truth. It buries it under layers of algorithms, opinions, and borrowed certainty. What we proudly call public opinion is often synchronized confusion. Millions of people echoing the same half-understood ideas until they sound like facts. And the cost? A civilization that feels informed, but understands almost nothing. A population that feels free, yet only thinks what it's been told to think. It's a quiet kind of slavery, not of the body, but of the mind. And the cruelest part is that most people don't even feel the chains because they were built from comfort, not fear. Reading once built the human mind slow, deliberate, immersive reading. But now, we skim, we scroll. We digest meaning in fragments. Our attention span has been traded for convenience. And without sustained focus, critical thought cannot survive. Ask yourself, when was the last time you read something all the way through? Not because it was short, but because it was true. When did you last listen, not to respond, but to understand? In that constant noise, something sacred fades our ability to sit with a single thought. Critical thinking isn't just an intellectual act. It's emotional bravery. It means admitting you might be wrong. It means letting go of identities built on borrowed beliefs. And in a world addicted to certainty, humility feels like weakness. So, instead of thinking, we defend. Instead of exploring, we attack. We cancel, conform, and perform intelligence without practicing it. Because to question deeply means to risk belonging. And belonging, for most, matters more than truth. Erich Fromm once wrote that people fear freedom because freedom demands responsibility. To think for yourself is to lose the comfort of blaming others. That's why so many quietly surrender their minds, not out of ignorance, but out of fatigue. Today's world worships confidence. We trust the loudest voice, not the wisest one. We confuse opinion with insight and performance with wisdom. But the truth is, the more certain someone sounds, the less likely they are to have thought deeply. Real thinkers hesitate. They pause before speaking because they've wrestled with complexity and they know how fragile truth really is. Meanwhile, the unthinking rush to speak their noise fills every silence where reflection once lived. So what can we do? The answer isn't to think more, it's to think better. To slow down, to create pauses, to ask questions that have no easy answers. Who profits from what I believe? Why do I feel so certain about this idea? What fear am I protecting when I refuse to listen? Every time you ask such questions, you reclaim a fragment of your mind. And piece by piece, those fragments form freedom. Thinking critically isn't rebellion. It's self-respect, the quiet decision to say, I refuse to let the world think for me. Most people think critical thought is about logic, but it's deeper than that. It's spiritual. It's the quiet act of honoring truth over comfort, of standing alone, mentally bare, before the unknown. Because truth is rarely gentle. It doesn't soothe you, it awakens you. And awakening always begins with discomfort. Carl Jung once said, people will do anything, no matter how absurd, to avoid facing their own souls. That's why thinking is so rare. It demands you look within. It's not about questioning the world first. It's about questioning yourself. Why do I believe what I believe? Whose voice echoes inside my own mind? What part of me still clings to illusions because they feel safe? When you begin to ask these questions, thought transforms into awareness. And awareness, that quiet, steady awareness, is not loud, but it changes everything. Maybe the revolution we need isn't political or technological. Maybe it's psychological. A silent rebellion inside every individual who chooses to wake up. The world doesn't need louder opinions. It needs calmer minds. Minds that listen more than they react. That question more than they defend. That choose curiosity over cynicism. Pause for a moment. Because once you begin to think clearly, you become ungovernable. Not in defiance, but in discernment. You see through manipulation. You stop mistaking noise for knowledge. And that makes you dangerous. Not to society, but to the systems that depend on your confusion. When the world goes quiet tonight, don't reach for your phone. Reach for your thoughts. Sit with them. Watch what they do when no one else is feeding them. At first, it will feel strange, maybe even empty. But stay there, because in that emptiness, something extraordinary returns your ability to think. And once you reclaim that, you are no longer just surviving inside the collective mind. You are alive in your own.